Hello again. It's good to be back, Kathy. Enjoyed last week. I want to cover very quickly kind of where we were and ended last week and then step into 3 points I want to make today about growing a business. I can start hearing me a little better. This is the situation where if someone, whether they are unemployed, they'd like to explore being a solopreneur, entrepreneur, or even in a corporate environment, they're thinking about changing, there's some dynamics that need to be in place. So I want to cover 3 points. But the first thing I want to start with is some statistics I pulled, and I want to read these to you because I think this is the bad news about being self-employed and what happens oftentimes. What I found was that there are 1 million businesses started each year, new businesses. The first year, 40% of those businesses fail. The next 5 years, 80% of those businesses fail. And in 10 years, there's only 4% of those businesses still alive and around.
Wow.
So that's the bad news. I think it's very important to understand those numbers, and one of the things that I talk about with people that are wanting to start a business, or they're in business and they're wanting to grow their business and they're struggling, is they need to be very clear, first off, about what the issues are that they oftentimes run into. And so I want to step back a minute to first initialize what it is that we really need to have in place before we even want to step into starting a business and or trying to grow a business that I'm into. And that is something that I spoke a little bit about last week, and that's your passion and a purpose. If you do not have that, if there's something that you have thinking about, that you have dreamed about, that really matters to you, that you would like to be able to perform or do or execute, and you'd like to do it on your own or create a small business where you actually have employees, doesn't matter about that part, but being very, very clear about your passion. If it's not something that you've got on your heart and mind, that when you talk to people about it, that your passion comes through. I mean, when I start talking about what I do, and you know this because you and I visit all the time, when I start talking about what matters to me and what I do, you can hear a change in my voice. The same thing I do with you. When you start talking about what you do here.
Can you tell?
Yeah, and it's easy to hear. Give you a very good example of how this can play out. You hear about people that are introverted, and talking in public or being in front of an audience and speaking is something that scares them more than the fear of dying. But if you have somebody begin to talk about something that really, really matters to them, you can put them in front of 1,000 people, and they forget those people are there because now they're in their heart. They're talking about a passion. And so even an introverted person that thinks they have fear about expressing themselves, when something really matters to them, they come alive. And so you need to have that. If you do not have something that matters to you that way, then your chances of being successful are going to be extremely slim, because it's not about money. It's not about quote unquote success as we vision a lot of things today. It's about a passion. So you got to have to start with. So if you're experimenting or thinking about it, if there's something that doesn't really matter to you that way, that you don't feel a fire in your belly about, then I would say step back and either look at doing something else or look for what that might be. And that's not an easy question to answer if I'm not clear, but I'm just saying unless you have that, you're at high risk of not successfully even implementing a business, and certainly will not be able to carry it out, because a lot of these businesses are going out of business. You hear about people burning out. And the reason why they do a lot of times is because they're trying to force something because they think they want more money or things like that, and it really has nothing to do with their heart, and they eventually burn out because they can't sustain it. So I want to make that very clear to people, that you just don't jump into something. Been to MLM meetings with clients because they're exploring those things, and what I see in those rooms oftentimes is people that really don't have a passion for that product or that service. They're looking at it because they're telling about all this money they can make. And that's the reason why you see a constant failure. I'm not discounting MLMs. I think there's value to many of them, and there are people that are very successful. But if they aren't clear that there's a deeper meaning and need, they won't be successful.
Well, that could even be if you're changing your career to not even something that is self-employed. Because
Absolutely.
I know I went to school to be an Oracle DBA. I got through with all of it and hated it.
Yeah.
And never spent all that time and stuff and realized that wasn't me. So, but it's most important, when you invest that much time and effort, you want to make sure that it's something. So do you recommend that they...
Much better.
Yeah.
I was backwards.
I could hear you.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, what was your question?
Well, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. I want to cover 3 points. So let's first focus on that because you really need to determine those things. And so I want to outline some things that you would do to really prepare yourself. And I understand if you're unemployed, you may be starting to feel desperate. But again, if you try to rush something, your chances of failure are going to be high. And none of us want that. So if you have that burning desire, then I would say take the time to really get clear about what that is. That means document it out, writing out what that means to you. What would be the value? What's the legacy you want to leave? Get very, very clear, and sometimes putting things on paper. And I'm not a person that likes to write all that much, but there are really valuable things to get out of putting things down on paper. Talking to other people about what matters to you is important, but I want to be careful here because actually I heard this the other day, and I think there's truth to it. If we start sharing things with people, our mind will automatically feel like it's something we've already done, and therefore we're already successful at it when we haven't done anything at all. So you have to really kind of be careful. I'd say the other part of that, really what you need is people to hold you accountable. You just don't go sharing with people, no, that's great and wonderful. You really need to have clarity about I'm wanting to have some people that care about me that I could network with that really I will be able to tell them here's what I want to accomplish a certain amount of time or whatever, and they're really holding me accountable. So just sharing it, and I think we all have probably done that. We've talked about something that matters to us, and the other people are listening and are getting all involved. We get through it, boy, we feel great. But have we actually done anything?
Yeah.
So it is being very clear about this, and I can't cover all these details in just the program.
I wish they'd come out with a program that would write down what you're thinking.
Well, maybe we wouldn't want that, especially if it went on air. I don't want people to know some things I'm thinking.
Majority Report. I think I saw that movie. Yeah,
maybe only 10% of what I think I'd want to share with anybody. So anyway, that's very, very important. So I want to cover 3 things. That first one is the foundation. That's what I call the foundation. The next 2 things, once you have done that and you've developed a clarity about what matters to you, then you need to start determining what you're going to do with that. What is the product or service out of that? And then I did speak last week about making sure that if there's something that you really have a desire to do, you want to be smart in looking at the marketplace out there and says, is this something that really is marketable? Is this something that people really, really need? Is there enough of a base of people that I can market and sell to that will make me a living? Because some things you may have an idea to do about, and horse carriages will not be something that is probably going to be that marketable today. So you want to be able to do research, and what I see oftentimes, and a lot of the reason these businesses fail, is because people really haven't done their homework. They just jump into it and make no plans about what they really need to be successful. So getting out there and really determining what the marketplace is, and that means you got to do some research. In this day and age, there's no excuse for not doing it. You got Google. I mean, you can go out here and do research to the earth looks level. I mean, forever and ever.
And just because you don't see it out there doesn't mean it's not a good idea. But
no, that's true.
We
may have a better mousetrap,
yeah,
and so that's where you start seeing geniuses come through. But again, you want to really look at that, and you can maybe do some market research or whatever, really kind of determine that. If you experiment with something like that, you can try to do some things to find out if it really is marketable if you think you got a better mousetrap. But yes, there is things to plan ahead. Then the who and what. Once you've done that, it's like who are those people, getting clear on that, and what it is that I'm specifically doing and making sure I'm very, very clear about what that is.
Could you do informational interview? I mean, you kind of think about if you're discovering the marketplace, I mean, I guess you couldn't just knock on somebody's door, but how would you, if it was a novel idea, I guess what you're talking about is go over it with trusted advisors and people that are,
well, that's one thing, but let's look at social media.
Yeah.
Let me give you a couple of hints here about social media and how to really make it effective for you. If you really take the time to connect with people and find people that you determine are maybe the area you want to market to or sell to, or they're people that are in a common industry, when you start reaching out and actually making contact with them and having dialogue with them using Twitter, Facebook is obviously a different type of business thing, but either way, especially Twitter, you start making connections with people where they're seeking you out or whatever. You start building a network out there of people you never even meet besides on Twitter. Now, you may end up calling them on the phone, interviewing them,
But you have a way of, if you start building this base and then you come out with an idea, then you come out here and say, you know, I'm thinking about this right here. I'd love feedback from people. Well, if they are somebody that's connected with you and interested in you, you're going to get a lot of feedback.
Okay.
So today, in this market age, you don't have to be a big corporation to really go out here and do demographics and marketing. I mean, you can do that, but you just can't do it blind. You need to build relationships and use those tools in ways that where you really go out there and effectively decide, hey, I'm going to make connections. I'm going to build relationships out there.
And it's never too late. I was just thinking, listening to you, some of the stuff is I would like to review what I had originally written down and go back to that.
Right.
And see if that hadn't modified over 6 months, and it has.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's an issue, because you get out there and you have something and you determine, no, this really isn't workable, then that model is you need to update it, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
And that's what you can constantly do is go out and get feedback from people.
Okay.
And
that's what one of the things you do for people too, is you
Right.
help bounce that off of them and where are they at? Because I know that you work with me, and that's very instrumental. And what you just gave me is some good advice for myself. I'm going to revisit my original plan and see how far off I am and what I need to do to adjust it so it's clear in my mind.
And I think you make a very good point there without getting too far from this, because it all is involved in the business situation. It's very easy for us to kind of get blind on what's going on because we get in our own head and so busy that having some source of review and constant processes outside myself that are not emotionally tied to what I do. But there are people that care about it. So you hear about these groups of people, 6 or 8, to get together, and they do the brainstorming thing. They bring the business issue. Mastermind groups, and they're pretty common. I've got a former client in New York City, and he is highly connected all over New York. And he started putting those together. He's not a coach.
Do you have to pay to be in those?
He charges a very reasonable price. Matter of fact, that's the thing to do, is look for them, because that's something that I do with people, and it makes it very affordable. Especially if people are starting out a business, they don't have a lot of revenue to distribute. So if you bring a group of people together, like I do with facilitating groups that way, to help keep them on track and keep focused, and because I bring my coaching expertise to it, it's a minimum fee that justifies it, but also makes it very affordable.
Well, I think you ought to put one together and let me be a part of it. So you let me know.
Hey, I just got a challenge, guys.
Okay, and the time's running out. So what did you have anything else?
Well, I was going to cover, the who and the what and the how, and those 3 things right there. I knew I wasn't going to cover this because there's also about marketing and sales. I want to go through those so the next time around, and also I want to start, as you and I've talked about, speaking to a few of my clients about bringing them on as guests, because one thing I can do is give them a chance to share some of what they've experienced by just their businesses, and actually be able to have a platform for putting that out, but also have them talk a little bit about ways that I helped them, because I think it's a little easier for that to be understood than me trying to talk about me. And I always like to make it all about me, but hey, I bring some other people in. So we'll just pick up next time. If are we down to the wire here right now?
Well, I think what is that, Red, that you got? I got. Oh, well, I'm going to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you.
Okay. All right. Well, my website is Blaker Business, www.blakerbusiness.com. Blaker Business Coaching.
See, it's not easy, is it?
It isn't. I need to change that maybe. 214-485-2238.
Okay, thank you, Rodger,
right,
and I look forward to you coming back next week, and we're going to be talking about the
continue on this.
Okay.
How marketing and sales
and starting your own business, and these are good tools. He's an excellent coach. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back, and we're going to be back with Stuart and me.